Here's Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com. All we want is Fitz. Hello, Fitz. How are you?
What a nice song to lead into me.
It
All
really
you
is,
want for
isn't it?
Christmas is
Can't
me.
get enough.
Man, that's like a
Uh,
human form of a lump of coal.
all right, let's cut the niceties here. I am worn out from K-State Twitter. I don't know how I got all this stuff. I don't know why I'm seeing it. I can't. I'm growing to hate Twitter more and more every day. It's what are your thoughts? I know you're right in the middle of this stuff. You're a journalist. You're covering it. You're writing about the situation with Coach Tang and the situation with Tomlin and everything that's gone on. But it seems like K State Nation is having a bit of a meltdown. Am I misreading?
No, I mean the first meltdown was obvious. I mean that was what the actual news that was going on, and then somehow after my segment last week on the morning show with the other fellas, I think it was that segment, they asked me about the chances of him staying or leaving, and I said 95% he's leaving. That's just what I think right now. And I was told I stated a fact that he was leaving. I'm not sure how you do that when you don't say actually he's leaving. But yeah, there was some, I'm just going to say it, some really weird reactions from that. Like I was creating all this controversy and this isn't really going on. Just some really odd stuff. But yeah, I still feel like, probably the chances are he's leaving. He says all the right things. But again, so I just finished up my YouTube show, The Insiders, and Glenn Kennelly from Topeka TV said he put the clip up about Naquan or about Jerome Tang's future from the Friday press conference, and he immediately had two quote tweets. See, he's staying. Oh, he's going. I mean, it was one of those great Bill Snyder answers. You could take out of it whatever you wanted to glean, and he was pretty not definitive about it, but I think he will be staying. I think he'll probably be going, but I'm hoping he's staying.
So you think there's a better chance that he'll stay than you did a few days ago?
Yeah, probably. I mean, and that's why I try to tell people, look, this was just my Snapchat at a Thursday morning when I hadn't talked to him in, a while because they were headed to Louisiana. They'd had their home game. And, I think probably that was a little high, but I still fear he's going to leave when it's all said and done. And the only reason I am really worried about it is I've already had Louisville media call me about Jerome Tang. They're coming after him. It's no secret in Louisville who their number one choice is to replace Kenny Payne. Nor is it any secret that Kenny Payne isn't going to survive the season because he's an awful basketball coach. But Louisville's one of those programs that basketball is their identity. Even though they went to the ACC football championship this year and pretty good, basketball is their sport, and they can't stand being mediocre in it. They're going to go get the best coach available, and they feel like Jerome Tang's their guy, and I think they felt that way before all this nonsense started. So we'll see. It's just one of those things you won't know anything about it until the end of the season, whether he's going to stay or go.
Man, it's weird because Jerome Tang has said, if God tells me to stay, I'll stay. If God tells me to leave, I'll leave. I mean, how much – I don't know how to, frame that as a question, but if it's that if he's not, personally in control of his decision, can it sort of be worked out? Or, I mean, how do you view all of that as far as just Tang's mindset about things?
Well, I think he, credits for God putting on his heart what he needs to do, but I think we also recognize that's, him trusting his gut. I need to stay. I need to go. And having a bad relationship with your ultimate boss, who, you could tell later in that press conference how bitter he was. Not bitter, how, it was still bugging him because when asked about trying to replace Naquan, they're going to start looking for someone that can at least come in and practice and help them get better for next year, and then they can play next year. And he said, but I don't think we're going to find these 6'10" guys that can play all 5 spots on the floor, and they're probably going to be NBA ready by the end of the season. I don't think any of those are left in the portal. The only one that went to Memphis from here. So I think he's still bugged by it. Why wouldn't you be? I mean, your job as a coach is to win games, and your job as a coach is to mentor and bring along young people, and he was attempting to do that, and then he couldn't. So I really have stopped talking about this a lot, simply because it's been resolved, and the Naquan Thomas part of this story is done. So we'll see if there's more to it later on down the road.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com. K-Staters also a little bit bummed about the football transfer portal, maybe more than a little bit. Again, I'm going off my Twitter feed, which is probably the worst thing to go off. But how concerned do you feel like Kansas State should be about the transfer portal, their NIL situation? Are these things that can get rectified, in your opinion, adequately to keep maybe this from the flood of transfers from happening? What's your thought on that?
Well, outside of a couple guys, I don't think anything's really surprising. Even Will Howard wasn't surprising. We all knew he wouldn't be back, whether that was going to be going to the NFL or the portal. Everyone knew the writing was on the wall that Avery Johnson was going to be the quarterback next year. And now we're hearing Will Howard might end up at USC. That might be where he's headed. And that is bolstered by the fact now that their Avery Johnson, the 5-star freshman quarterback they had, that a lot of people assumed to be the guy, just hit the portal. So I think that might be where he ends up. The one that really hurt me was Kobe Savage. I mean, this was a captain. This was a guy who, just was a really good locker room guy and felt like, he was a team leader. So it's not just losing a good safety, it's losing a good leader. But it looks like he's going to end up at Oregon, so I'm sure his NIL will be increased. But that's just the way it is now. And they're already working on safeties. They were before. They just got a commitment from a defensive end out of the FCS level, Austin P. And, they're going to plug those holes as best they can. They're active in the portal, and they're doing a pretty good job finding guys that will help them next season.
Outside of, I'm going to ask a basketball question. Outside of the fact that it's an interstate matchup and it looks nice on paper, is there anything attractive about Wichita State and Kansas State on Thursday? How good of a matchup do you think that is? Wichita State is seemingly taking a bit of a step forward. K-State is taking a step back. So how do you look at that matchup?
Well, I first of all, I love it that they're playing, and I credit Bruce Weber for finally giving in on the K-State side and deciding to play this. This should never have been not played. Wichita State should be playing both schools in state, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm looking forward to it. I was looking forward to it more before I saw yesterday's version of Kansas State basketball, which was atrocious, losing at home to Nebraska and scoring 12 points in the second half, missing they missed as many three-pointers in the second half as they scored points. They missed 12. It was just dreadful, but it wasn't the bad shooting. We've all covered basketball. Sometimes teams shoot like crap. That just happens. It was kind of getting beat in everything else. They got out-rebounded. They got out-hustled. As Jerome Tang said in postgame, they just kicked their ass. And what can you say about that? That's exactly what happened. They wanted it more, and that's something that K-State better solve, or it'll happen to Wichita State. And I know Wichita State is kind of on the uptick a little bit, but I think K-State fans are waiting, holding judgment to hit the panic button until after Thursday to see how this game comes out, to see if this was a one-game aberration of playing that poorly or if it's going to be something they have to deal with on and off all year.
So I want to get back to football with you and talk about, I presume you've seen Chip Kelly's video where he talked about his thoughts on how college football should operate. I was in 98% agreement. I just thought it was brilliant, and kind of letting football be its own thing at the collegiate level, and not making the other sports kind of follow along. What are your thoughts on Chip Kelly's thoughts?
I loved it, and I'm not a relegation guy. I hate that model. But this model makes it seem to work better, where how do you relegate part of a conference and then not the whole. It just didn't ever make sense to me how that would work. Well, he's proposing there are no conference affiliations for football. It's its own thing. And then you can go back to your regional, alignments for every other sport if you want to, which makes a lot of sense. But, you'll have 64 teams in the upper level of college football. Everyone else will be, like in the lower classes of football. And he didn't really spell out how to do it, but eventually teams will move down and teams will move up, and they're going to be scheduling within their regions and then playing games outside of their regions. But basically like the NFL, the office will do the scheduling. They'll tell you who you're playing. I really liked it, and I've never wanted relegation in any form, but it gives programs access up if they're good enough, and it moves down schools that just frankly shouldn't be there. But somehow, if had years of affiliation with the Big Ten or the SEC or whomever, and they just get grandfathered in because they're part of that club, when we know for the most part, a football program at Vanderbilt doesn't belong in that upper stratosphere of conference. I loved it. I'm going to explore it some more, and I've got a subscriber sending me some really interesting information about how it could work, and it's fascinating to me.
What do you think the chances are that it begins a discourse, a serious look at college athletics and especially college football, or will it just get swept under the rug and we'll just go on as life as usual?
I would say that the biggest impediment to getting something done will be the TV networks. I mean, I don't think ESPN wants to give up its hold on the SEC and, on the SEC and the other networks on the Big Ten, and that'll be the biggest barrier. But I'm fired up about it. I think it's a great idea, and maybe with that, kind of get rid of the bowls and just do. I thought they should be doing regionalized, like postseason games for the teams that don't make the playoff. Maybe have 4 days in a row in Orlando or something, and 4 days in a row in Houston or however it would work, and of different games that we'll just have blocks of football for a week or two. And I like that idea too.
Well, I get TV's power here, but I almost hope that college football uses its power. And if you force it, what's ESPN going to do? They're going to go for programming.
Yep.
That's my thought.
Yep.
We'll certainly continue to talk more. Fitz, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, boys. Good to hear from you.